No human eye had ever seen this far beneath the waves. Yet there we were, watching in stunned silence as our lights swept across what could only be described as a gate to another world. Our expedition was supposed to be routine, another geological survey of the Mariana Trench, mapping the ocean floor and documenting strange sea life. But 3 hours into our descent, the sonar detected something strange, a massive, rigid structure hidden beneath layers of sediment. Our excitement was tempered by a gnawing unease, yet the possibility of a new discovery was too tempting to resist. Descending into pitch-black waters, we watched in silence as the lights of our submersible illuminated a massive alien structure. It wasn't just a strange rock formation or an unusually symmetrical coral bed. No, this was something far beyond our understanding. It had sharp, angular features, smooth walls, and what appeared to be carvings that glistened in the light as though somehow untouched by time. The control room of the submersible was deathly silent. Everyone's eyes were glued to the monitors, where the images from our external cameras displayed a structure that felt both familiar and impossibly foreign. Goosebumps prickled my skin as I noticed a detail that had escaped us at first: a massive door, sealed shut, its edges adorned with faintly glowing symbols. There was no doubt in my mind this was a tomb. And from the chilling symmetry of its architecture, it was clear that no human had built it. What? What do we do now? Someone whispered. We open it, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. It was a reckless decision, but the discovery of an ancient alien structure was the find of a lifetime. We had to see what lay beyond that door. As we approached the entrance, the submersible's sensors picked up a surge of energy emanating from the door, as though the structure could sense our presence. Readings spiked across the monitors, displaying data we had no means of interpreting. Whatever lay within this tomb was powerful, and it was alive in ways we could barely understand. I activated the remote-controlled arm, a steel claw designed to manipulate objects at extreme depths, and steered it towards the door. As the claw touched the ancient metal, a deep hum resonated through the water, vibrating the walls of the submersible. Startled gasps filled the control room as we watched the readings peak and the door's edges began to glow brighter, casting an eerie light over the ocean floor. Slowly, with a groan that seemed to shake the very earth, the doors parted, releasing a thick cloud of silt that swallowed our view. We waited, barely breathing, as the cameras slowly readjusted. Gradually, the interior came into focus, and what we saw was both mesmerizing and terrifying. The space beyond the door was massive, far larger than any natural cavern, and the walls were lined with glyph symbols that seemed to pulse with a dim, otherworldly light. They covered every surface, spiraling and twisting, telling stories we couldn't read but that left an unsettling impression on all of us. Rows of alien artifacts lay scattered across the floor, all glowing faintly as though waiting to be discovered. We carefully guided the submersible inside, and as we crossed the threshold, something remarkable happened. The sensors flickered, then reset, displaying atmospheric readings instead of the usual deep-sea conditions. The air was breathable. The pressure normalized. Somehow, within this tomb, a different environment existed, separate from the crushing weight of the ocean above. This place, it's like it's been preserved, I whispered, the awe in my voice mixed with fear. One of the crew members zoomed in on a crystalline structure in the center of the room. It was a massive pillar of translucent material, intricately carved with scenes of strange bipedal figures holding devices or weapons in their hands. Their eyes were elongated and their faces held an unsettling intelligence, with a thrill that bordered on terror. I realized that these figures might be representations of the beings who had built this place, the creators of this tomb. Were they still here, preserved within these walls? Or had they left, abandoning their creation to the depths? As we drifted deeper into the tomb, the faint hum that had first resonated through the submersible began to grow louder, as if some ancient mechanism had activated with our arrival. The lights dimmed, and somewhere far within the structure, we heard the sound of machinery clicking, like a great engine awakening after eons of slumber. What? What have we done? Once we passed the initial chamber, the path diverged into narrow corridors, each lined with more glyphs and strange carvings. Every wall, every corner, was marked with signs of an ancient intelligence that left us feeling like unwelcome intruders in a place that had been untouched for centuries, maybe even millennia. The corridors twisted and turned, their geometry unsettlingly asymmetrical, as if designed to disorient any who entered. As we continued forward, a low, resonant hum filled the air. It was like a pulse, beating in rhythm with our own hearts. Lights embedded in the walls flickered to life, illuminating our path, but also casting eerie shadows that danced along the carvings. We began to feel an intense sense of déjà vu, like fragments of forgotten dreams bubbling up to the surface. But these weren't our memories. It felt as though they belonged to someone or something else. One by one, our team members started murmuring descriptions of visions they were experiencing. Glimpses of a planet bathed in green light. Skyscrapers with no windows, skies filled with 3 moons. I could see it too, like a vivid daydream flashing in my mind. A technologically advanced civilization, thriving in harmony, but then something shifted. The skies turned dark, and a monstrous shadow loomed over the city. The visions intensified. The world we saw was falling to ruin, invaded by an unknown force. We saw their weapons, their ships, their desperate struggle to hold on to their way of life. It was a civilization destroyed, its people wiped out by an unstoppable enemy. And then, suddenly, I understood. This tomb wasn't just a memorial, it was a warning. It was a final testament left behind by a species that had known the true horror of the universe. We pressed onward, feeling compelled to understand the full story. We passed through rooms filled with artifacts, devices of unknown purpose, alien sculptures, and what appeared to be written records on delicate, iridescent tablets. I picked one up carefully, but as I did, the lights in the room dimmed, and that low hum grew louder. The glyphs on the walls began to shimmer, and for a split second, I could swear they were moving, twisting to form new shapes. A booming, echoing voice filled the chamber. Not spoken, but felt in our minds. The language was indecipherable, but the emotions were clear. Loss, regret, a warning. And then, like a jolt of electricity, it was gone. I dropped the tablet, and as it hit the floor, I knew this place was meant to be a prison for the horrors that had ravaged their world. A tomb to contain something that should never be unleashed. We moved quickly, anxious to leave before whatever had been activated found us. But as we turned to retrace our steps, a harsh metallic sound echoed down the corridor, stopping us in our tracks. Slowly, ominously, we saw shapes emerging from the shadows at the far end of the hall. They were unlike anything I had ever seen, tall, sleek, and covered in alien armor that shimmered under the lights. Their bodies looked half metal, half organic, with smooth, angular limbs and elongated heads, each equipped with a single glowing red eye. These were the guardians of the tomb, protectors of the secrets we had unwittingly disturbed. Their movements were slow and deliberate, almost mechanical, as if they hadn't moved in eons and were adjusting to the weight of their own bodies. They scanned the room with their red eyes, as though searching for the intruders who had dared to enter. I motioned for my team to remain still, but it was too late. One of the guardians turned its head, and in an instant, its eye flashed a blinding red. The hum that had haunted us grew to a piercing shriek as more guardians emerged from hidden alcoves in the walls. They began to advance, their steps echoing through the tomb. We backed away, desperate to escape, but every path seemed to twist and loop, leading us deeper into the labyrinthine tomb. It was as though the walls themselves were shifting, preventing any chance of escape. Head for the main chamber, I shouted, and we sprinted back to the entrance, the guardians hot on our trail. They moved with terrifying precision, closing in with each step. Desperation gripped me as I realized that we might not make it out alive. I could almost feel the breath of the cold alien air closing in around us, suffocating us with the weight of millennia of secrets. In the main chamber, we noticed the massive pulsing sphere we had overlooked upon entering. It was the source of the tomb's energy, the heartbeat of this place. One of my crew, a tech specialist, shouted, "That sphere, we disrupt it, maybe it'll stop them." With no other choice, we raced towards it. The guardians followed their movements, frantic, as if sensing the threat to their power source. I watched in horror as one of the guardians stretched out a limb and transformed it into a blade, its edge gleaming under the lights. With a final burst of adrenaline, we reached the sphere. The tech specialist hastily attached a detonation device, and we all backed away, hoping it would be enough to halt the guardians and contain whatever evil was locked in this place. Just as the last charge was set, the guardians stopped, standing motionless around us. Their red eyes dimmed, and for a brief, eerie moment, they seemed almost human, as if they were silently pleading with us to reconsider. But it was too late. The charges detonated, and the sphere fractured, releasing a blinding wave of energy that surged through the tomb. We barely managed to escape the chamber as the walls began to crumble, the guardians collapsing, one by one, their bodies disintegrating into dust. The tomb was coming apart, sealing its secrets, and our lives depended on us reaching the exit before it was too late. As the tomb crumbled around us, the submersible rocked violently, buffeted by shockwaves rippling from the exploding sphere. The energy coursing through the tomb surged in wild, unpredictable pulses, tearing apart walls, splintering artifacts, and reducing everything in its path to dust. We pushed the submersible's engines to their limit, racing against the collapsing tomb. Fragments of alien technology and jagged shards of crystal clattered against the hull, sending metallic clangs reverberating through the cabin. Alarms screamed, and warning lights flashed as the pressure began to build outside. The crushing weight of the ocean threatening to consume us. All around, structures were sinking into the abyss, swallowed by the deep. The tomb's final defense mechanisms were still active, even in its death throes. Amid the wreckage, a last wave of guardians emerged, scrambling to reach us, their bodies glitching as though corrupted by the energy surges. They moved erratically, their metal limbs twitching as they staggered forward, driven by an ancient duty they could not abandon. We barely evaded their grasp, our submersible slipping past just in time as the floor crumbled beneath them, sending them tumbling into the churning darkness below. They vanished from sight, but their red eyes lingered in my mind, hauntingly human in their desperation and fury. As we sped toward the exit, the memory of the tomb's message hung heavy in my mind. The visions, the whispered warnings, the regret that filled that ancient voice. They had known the danger lurking in their technology, the horrors it could unleash. They had built this tomb to bury it, to shield the universe from what had destroyed them. And we, ignorant explorers, had disturbed their final resting place. Just as we reached the threshold of the tomb's entrance, the entire structure shuddered violently, collapsing in a final, earth-shattering implosion. We surged forward, blasting out of the tomb mere moments before it disappeared completely, swallowed by clouds of silt and debris. The once grand structure, the alien glyphs, the guardian soul of it, was gone, buried forever beneath miles of ocean. Outside, we drifted in the silent expanse of the Mariana Trench, watching as the remnants of the tomb settled back into the depths. Our instruments began to stabilize, and the oppressive weight of the tomb's presence slowly faded. But a profound emptiness replaced it, a gnawing sense of dread that none of us could shake. We had glimpsed a sliver of the universe's hidden horrors, and we knew we had barely scratched the surface. In the days that followed, we filed our reports, carefully omitting certain details. Some things, we agreed, were better left unspoken. We left out the visions, the warnings, the feeling of ancient eyes watching us. And as for the tomb, we marked it as a geological anomaly, one that collapsed before we could fully survey it. But the truth stayed with us, etched in our minds. I could still see the alien city bathed in green light, the 3 moons hanging in a sky filled with dread. I could still feel the guardians' red eyes on me, as though they'd looked past my own and seen the future. They knew, as I now did, that some things were meant to remain buried. Years passed, and none of us returned to the Mariana Trench. We went on with our lives, each of us carrying a piece of that place within us. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I would wake up haunted by dreams of the tomb, by the visions of that ancient world, and the warning that had echoed in my mind. I wondered if we had truly escaped, or if the tomb's secrets had somehow followed us, embedded in our memories like a silent curse. One evening, as I watched a quiet sea from the shore, I thought I saw a faint red light in the water, far out beyond the waves. I blinked, and it was gone.